So the next talk is Bad Design is a Crime, Skate-Friendly Cities. We're in one, so let's learn. First up, a professional skateboarder from France who rides for Magenta. Leo has worked to improve the city of Bordeaux's approach to skating and co-developed skate urbanism to integrate skateboarding into the development of that city. So please welcome Leo Valls. And welcome back from Skate Like a Girl, a non-profit organisation which aims to improve equity and access in skateboarding, inspiring non-traditional skaters around the world. Give it up for Kristin Ebeling. Next up, from Malmö University, an associate professor in sports science with a PhD in urban geography looking at spatial issues in connection to sport. Please give it up for Dr. Karin Book. One quick thing to note, because of our poor, very bad tardiness and being very, very late, Karen's going to have to dip out during this talk because we're running so late. So thank you so much for being here for the short time that we have you. So next up, okay. He's a landscape architect from Sweden with a background in skate park design who initiated Inclusive Skate Parks, a study with non-normative skaters investigating how skate parks can become more inclusive through their design. That's Fredrik Angner. And co-chairing the talk, a former professional skateboarder, now associate professor of history at the University of Oregon, who's written extensively on skateboarding and architecture. He spoke at last year's Pushing Borders, and we're delighted to have him back. Please welcome Professor Ocean Howell. And joining him as co-chair, representing Skate Malmö, who, let's face it, are absolutely setting the bar on what exactly a sustainable, skate-friendly city is. Please welcome the skateboarding coordinator for the city of Malmo, Gustav and your panel!
Okay, well, can you guys hear me? Thank you all very much for sticking it out to the end. I think the panel's going to be really good, so thank you for your patience. So what we're going to do is just kind of start. We're going to go around, and everyone's going to give kind of a brief, a little more in-depth introduction of themselves. And so I'll go ahead and start. I'm now a professor of history, and my current research doesn't actually focus on skateboarding. The last big thing I published was a book titled Making the Mission, Planning and Ethnicity in San Francisco. It's published on University of Chicago Press. And what I'm doing in that book is looking at the history of the Mission District in San Francisco from 1906 to 1973. And I'm asking a lot of questions about that I think are very germane to this. It's very different context, of course, but even there I'm asking the question about what is the community? Who has a right to speak for the community? Who can speak for the community? When and under what circumstances is a community able to really, determine their own future, right? And literally, that's investment into the social structure as well as into the literal physical space, the actual physical planning of the city. So it's not directly about skateboarding, but it really deals with a lot of these themes. And in fact, the way I got into that kind of deeper historical research was through my writing on skateboarding. It's a very unconventional path into academia, but I started looking very carefully at the culture that I love and that I grew up in, which is skateboarding. So I've written essays about defensive architecture, as well as about the politics of public space and about skate parks. And in all of those things, it's not an academic kind of looking at skateboarding. I always think of it more as a skateboarder doing an ethnography of urban planning. So that's how I come to all of this stuff. And I've also been skateboarding for 36 years, and I thought I would have stopped by now, but I'm never going to. So, thank you. And I also just want to very quickly thank the host. Thanks to Stu, the whole Pushing Borders team. Thanks so much to Gustav, Skate Malmo. This is amazing, and I'm really looking forward to learning.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm Gustav. I work for the city of Malmö. I work with the skateboarding project, originally primarily with events, but now we're trying to do more to make those events have long-term effects and to sort of translate the values that skateboarding can offer into the public sphere. And so I guess with this panel last year, we spoke a lot about the kind of classic perspective from the skateboarding perspective, which is how do we get access to public space? How do we make sure that there are spots that we're allowed to skate that are designed the right way, and how can we make that happen? I think perhaps it's because we have managed to do that to an extent, but I'm interested in what happens next. So once skateboarders exist in the public realm, what effect do we have on other user groups? How do we, if we have claimed this right with certain arguments that we're helping to improve the city, do we live up to that promise, or are we in actuality offering something else? And I'm looking forward to discussing that in this panel and seeing how when we move from asking to having responsibility, where we can do better to make sure that we can sustain skateboarding as to be a sustainable feature in cities in the future. So that's, I guess, my take on this panel in a way.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Karin, and I work here at the Department of Sports Science at Malmö University. I have tried skateboarding once. I think it was in 1980. However, I have a son who is skateboarding frequently, so I have some kind of personal connection to skateboarding as well. I have a background as an urban geographer, but nowadays I work within the field of sports science, which means that I'm interested in, as an urban geographer, spatial issues in connection to sport and physical activity. For instance, I'm interested in how urban planning affects our opportunities for physical activity. And I'm also interested in the use and perception of public places, especially why public places are not used for physical activity. Right now, I work on a research project with the name Equalizer, a tool for equal and inclusive activity places. Here in Malmö, a lot of new activity places have been built during the last decade. Ball pitches, skate parks, outdoor gyms, etc. But as we all know, there are certain groups who use these places while other groups are not. And it's mainly boys and men. And in this project, we like to look at existing activity places in order to understand the barriers for using them. And then, as a next step, in order to develop inexpensive, easy tools to develop these places into more inclusive places. I am not, and we have mainly worked with girls in that project. We're focused on girls. I'm not a skateboard researcher. However, as you know, skateboarding is one example of a physical activity, and skate parks and skate spots are example of physical activity places. I do not dislike skateboarding, I must say, but I think my role here will be a bit of to have a critical eye on skateboarding anyway. So I will be the bad guy, I think, here.
We certainly need an objective perspective. Thanks.
Hey everyone, my name is Kristin. I'm from Seattle, Washington, and my contribution to making Seattle a more skate-friendly city started when I was a teen. I became a volunteer with Skate Like a Girl when they hosted a skate event. I didn't think other women skaters existed, and I showed up to the event, and I was really wrong, and I'm really glad I was. And ever since that moment, I started joining and participating. And at that time, the founders of our organization had made connections with other skate park advocates, and we joined what was the Skate Park Advisory Committee. And the one major goal of the Skate Park Advisory Committee, because when it started in the late 2000, like maybe 2007-ish, 2008, there hardly were any skate parks in Seattle. There was one DIY project sort of starting on the south end, and then there was a skate park right near the Space Needle that was about to get taken out. And one of the biggest things that we did is we created a citywide skate park plan, and it was copied from Portland, Oregon. The same concept was, I believe, spearheaded there. And the beauty behind that is that it created a map of our whole city, and it identified spaces where in the future we would prioritize skateboarding. So it basically would be like, this is a future site of a park, and if and when we get funding for that, we know that it'll be a skate spot, or we know that it'll be a regional skate park. So the city kind of pre-committed to the idea of having a skatable space there. So it's one of the things that I'm really proud of. Currently, we have another Seattle Center skate park that was taken out, totally different one than what I talked about just a second ago, due to some redevelopment and some large developers buying up the skate park property. And one of the things that I'm working on is advising the new park that will be built, not just to make it more inclusive and welcoming to folks that traditionally have not been centered in the skate park process in the past, so centering beginners, centering women, other non-traditional skaters, family, community. How can we get buy-in of the whole scene so it's a stronger, more lasting place? Because I've seen it in my own city in Seattle. Skate park gets built, gets sold to developers, they rip it out. Happened again. It's I think this new Seattle Center skate park is our 5th iteration of a skate park by the Space Needle, and that needs to stop. So looking at ways we can create a ton of community buy-in, so this is the last time we have to build that skate park.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I would just like to say I'm super honored to be invited here. And I'm also feeling a little bit like I'm going to drop in switch in a vert ramp, so... yeah. Leah's promised to hold my hand if I get a bit shaky. But anyways, my name is Fredrik, Angner, and I'm a landscape architect at White. And if you don't know about White, all you need to know is that we're the firm behind Plaza Svampen, just to get you a little bit familiar with what we do. Yeah. No. There are so many things that I would like to say on this topic, but I think I want to use this little time to talk about a R&D that we at White have made in collaboration with the Swedish Skateboard Association, which I think brings up a really important aspect when talking about design and skate-friendly cities, which is inclusion. And as we know, there are many inclusive initiatives in skate media and so forth, etc. But we wanted to learn more about the physical spaces of skateboarding and how they could become more inclusive, mainly through design. And at work, when I suggest skate-friendly interventions and stuff, which kind of is what I want to do, I often get to hear like, skateboarding is just for boys, which statistically is quite accurate, I guess. But we also work a lot with sort of norm creative perspective when we work with public spaces. So I kind of wanted to apply that to skate parks. And so I approached my very talented colleague, Rebecca, who is a specialist within leading these types of workshops, and asked her if she could design and lead a few workshops for us with non-normative skaters and sort of find out their side of the story and create a safe space where they could share their experiences and sort of tell how they thought skate parks could become more inclusive through design. And so through these workshops, they identified like multiple positive emotions, as I think we can all relate to, sense of freedom and so on and so forth, but also barriers. sort of negative emotions that would block the positive. And most often these would be linked to the like skating at the skate park at regular hours. So these would include like being stared at, so feeling really self-conscious because you're being stared at, feeling cornered, not being able to claim space, feeling incapable because a lot of skate parks are extremely advanced, feeling unsafe because the location might be really remote or might be badly lit, and also feeling excluded and not sort of part of the normative crew. So from that, we started talking about skate parks and how these barriers could be addressed through design. And they had like loads of interesting suggestions on important design aspects regarding this, both on spatial composition, but also on skate objects. And I mean, hopefully can get into some of these things later. But generally, our results points to skate parks being a lot more inclusive as, you know, diffused, edged, varied hybrid spaces where skateboarding is just like one of many functions, rather than like sharp-edged display and performance-based single-use facilities such as skate parks often can be. But for me, I think what's been important with this project from a personal perspective is that now I'm a privileged sort of normative skater in a position of power, and it's made me question myself as a designer and who I'm representing and who I'm involving in the design process. So, and also like how can I find these other voices that I might not hear but I know exist, so on and so forth. But anyways, I think working with inclusion on all levels is key for motivating having a skate-friendly city, and I think that's what I wanted to start. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Leo. I'm from Bordeaux, France, and I've been a professional skateboarder for the past 10 years now. To give a little bit of a background, I've been at the city of Bordeaux has a very strong skateboarding community, a strong skateboarding scene for a long time now. We have like several like skate shops, a distribution company. The National Skateboarding Magazine is based in Bordeaux. Associations like Skate School, you know, and what's interesting, it's also like pretty much the same size as Malmö. However, the city of Bordeaux has been extremely repressive towards skateboarding since around like 2000, and it's been more and more repressive through the years. Around the year 2016, they were giving about 800 tickets a year to skateboarders for skating in the streets. And most of the public plazas were like forbidden to skate. So when I say repressive, it means no skateboarding signs, skate stoppers, physical tickets. And it would go to the point that I would actually witness like kids skating at 3 p.m. on like a public space and getting chased by like police on segways and almost getting run over by like cars, you know, by trying to get away. So it was becoming really, really bad, and it would really affect me, you know, because I'm aware of how strong my skate community is, or like I love my city, you know, so that was really affecting me. And if I had the chance to travel quite a lot with skateboarding, and every time I'd come back home, I would see the situation becoming worse and worse, you know. And eventually I had this call from a TV news channel, because they wanted to make like talk about the economy of skateboarding in Bordeaux on like a live TV news channel. And at first they called me, I was like, no, I don't want to be like on a TV news channel, like a mainstream TV news channel. You know, back then I didn't understand like this. And so I said no at first, and then I called them back. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come to this TV news channel, but I'm actually gonna talk shit on the city policy, you know? And they said, yes, do that, you know, because like they love like stories like that. So I went for it, and I talked shit on the city, and I explained how they were like actually like being repressive, but still using the image of skateboarding in their communication program. So I thought that was really hypocritical, you know. And eventually, the city contacted me, and they were like, "Hey, we need to talk," you know. So I set up a crew of like skaters from my hometown, like, you know, all the pros, like skate shops, like project managers and such, and we end up at like a round table with politicians and other city users that hate skateboarding. And we actually explained to them why skateboarding is can be positive, and why it's actually beneficial, and why it's so important in our lives, you know. And I guess from there, it's been like a snowball, and we like worked with like started like we did a big exhibition in like a museum where you came to Ocean, and you actually been a big help for us because you came to Bordeaux and you made like you made them understand how like why skateboarding is like so important also, you know. So this big event was very, very important. I ended up debating the mayor of Bordeaux with the ex-prime minister of France on it's like a very strong figure in France, you know, in front of a big crowd of like skaters, city users, journalists, and with like a representative of citizens who actually hate skateboarding also, like think skateboarding is like negative or like aggressive, you know. And the mayor, in this positive context, there was this exhibition that was saying skateboarding is healthy, said we need to like find solutions, and we are going to ask you to work on a master plan to integrate skateboarding in the public landscape, you know. So the first thing we did was setting up time frames. We proposed time frames for these plazas that used to be forbidden at all times. Like some plazas we just couldn't skate anymore. We used to only be able to skate at night because the city cops would just like ticket us immediately. And so we set up these time frames without like asking too much, you know, like, oh, like 2 afternoons a week, let us skate the city hall, you know, stuff like that. And they're like, really, is this gonna work? I was like, let's do a 3-month trial. And we did the 3-month trial and it worked out. And the city was like, oh, wow, skaters are actually like, they can respect some rules also, you know, like, because we were so used to being like chased and ticketed that it felt just so good to be able to skate these spots again without like getting ticketed, you know. And from there, my good friend Arnaud de Dieu, who's also who's here in the crowd in the first row, who's been a very influential project manager in France, started a consulting agency named Dedication. And so we associated in this in order to work with the city and create this master plan to integrate skateboarding in the upcoming city projects, and also in some areas in the city center, you know. So it's been very interesting to be able to meet like all these architects and all these people and you know, work with the city of Bordeaux. Also, we since after the mayor started like giving us the green light to work with like skateboarding and integrate it, I've been contacted by all kind of different departments at the city, such as like the cultural department. Be like, oh, we have this budget. Do you want to make like an art exhibition? And so we built some like skatable art installations around town and stuff like that. And then you realize once you get the mayor approval, you can start working with different departments of the city, whether it's like the transportation department or like the cultural department, the sport department, and then it becomes really interesting. And one thing I want to say mostly is that actually at the beginning of this process, the work that Gustav and the city of Malmö and all the people in Malmö that have been pushing skateboarding here have been extremely giving us power, you know, to do this work. And I just want to thank you publicly for that, giving us this power of doing that, you know.
Just really quickly before we move on, tell them about the skate stoppers. The skate stoppers in Bordeaux. Didn't you get the city to agree to?
Right. We like in the master plan, we convinced the city that skate stoppers were negative because they send the wrong message to the city users that, oh, skateboarding is negative. You know, when you have like skate stoppers and you have a no skateboarding sign, it tells the average city user that skateboarding is negative. So it's going to perceive skateboarding negatively. And we explained that skate stoppers, you call it like defensive architecture, but we used the term aggressive architecture. And that was even stronger for the politicians to be like you perceive us as like aggressive as skateboarders, but skate stoppers are actually aggressive to us, you know. And they signed this convention saying they are not going to use skate stoppers anymore.
Amazing, what a panel, huh? Yeah, that's way more than we have, you know. That's great work. Just to set the scene, Karin, I'm really interested to hear, because I mean, we were talking about this yesterday, how in Sweden, I mean, skateboarding is, skateboarders in Sweden shouldn't really have the self-conception of being an underdog in a way. Because they're often white, male, middle-class people, and now skateboarding is cool, so you have a social and cultural capital. So the construing the skater as an underdog is kind of a misconstruction. This may be different in other parts of the world. But I'm interested in, if you look at sports facilities and places for activity, there's plenty of spaces for young men. I'd be interested to hear more about the other user groups that are out there and who is out there that there are not activities for, and how, who should be prioritized in investment in a sense.
Well, it's a huge question. Well, in Sweden, we do have a long tradition of organized sport. We have a very, very strong sport movement, which now also includes skateboarding. And the sport movement has always been dominated by men, although we find a lot of girls within the sport movement as well. But if you look at the more traditional sport facilities, usually the boys get better time slots than the girls, they have more facilities, etc. And then during the last decade, we have seen a shift, if you look at urban planning, for instance, from more traditional sport investments or infrastructure investments towards investments in public space and in more facilities for self-organized activities. And skateboarding, I would say, is something in between today, more of a non-organized or self-organized activity. And the thought behind this shift was partly to make more people physically active and also to make probably, underrepresented groups, make them active and give them a place to be. But if you look at the public activity places, for instance, skate parks, but it could also be ball pitches and outdoor gyms, they are totally dominated by boys. So instead of going towards a more gender equal infrastructure, we have moved towards even more even worse situation, I would say, when it comes to where resources end up. Because this is both a problem when it comes to physical activity. Boys are more active than girls. It's a, health perspective to that. A resource perspective, a democratic perspective, public space, as well as sport facilities should be for everyone, and then they are dominated by boys. But then you wanted to know what to do about it, or and I couldn't answer that here. But I think that's probably both within planning for organized sport and planning for other type of activities today. That's probably one of the most burning issues to focus on underrepresented groups. And it could be about planning. How do we make spaces more inclusive? How do we design more inclusive spaces? But it's also about how do we organize the activities around the spaces? What's the rules? What's the regulations? Who could access the spaces? And also, I think this requires totally new ways of planning and organizing activities. We have to think outside the traditional boxes of this is sport, this is other activities, and start to cooperate. But that's the problematic picture in Sweden, that we have actually become less, I would say, gender equal when it comes to the investments rather than the opposite.
And where do you think skateboarding fits into this context?
More on the non-organized, self-organized side, where the facilities are not controlled or controlled to a very limited extent. And unfortunately, when there is no control, it tends to become, self-perpetuating process. Those who are already there and dominate the place tend to take over more and more, unfortunately.
Yes, so in a sense, this is a problem for us in Sweden because obviously from a political perspective, if you are to invest to the most pressing user groups to generate physical benefits is young girls, and spaces are dominated by men. And from a skateboarding perspective, if we are to ask for investment in skateboarding, we are currently asking for an investment in dedicating even more public space to men. So the question is then, I guess, what do we in the skateboarding community do about that? How do we, in this context, ask to be included? And I guess your research there, Fredrik, is really interesting.
Yeah, I think it touches upon this subject, and I think we can do a lot by participatory design and reaching out to sort of underrepresented groups, and not necessarily just girls. There are other groups that are not represented that we kind of tend to forget about. Sometimes we tend to talk about boys and girls, but there are actually other non-normative skaters. And I think, what's beautiful about skate parks, I think, is that, or skatable spaces, is that there are no rules to how a skate park has to look like. Sure, we have like norms that are that have led to our skate parks being extremely coded. Like I don't know, like for instance, in a transition, you're meant to do a lip trick. On a ledge, you're expected to do certain things. And a part of our results shows that skate objects, for instance, feel more less forgiving or more forgiving if they're sort of suggesting rather than directing. So, like reinterpretable objects that might be like a little bit odd, or you don't really know what to do on it. So I think, there's a lot of things you can do just by skate park design, I think.
Can you give an example of that, like a spot that doesn't tell you what to do on it?
I can give a spot that I've been thinking about. I think there are a lot of, like in Copenhagen, I think we have quite a lot of those sort of odd spots. The white banks. I think it's called Charlotte Amundsenplatz. There's like this sort of white, sort of icebergy shapes that are really good for skating, but kids also use them for playing. Like, it doesn't dictate. It doesn't say like, oh, this is a skate object. It's actually like a multifunctional object, and it's also kind of like artistic and cool, and it creates an identity for the space, which we skateboarders love. We love authenticity. So I think it's kind of like a good example of a functional skatable space for both normative skateboarders and also, I guess, non-normative skateboarders. I don't know. I kind of spun off a little bit, but
I think that's fascinating, and one of the things that I've been really excited to see as skateboarding has developed and gotten acceptance in cities is the way that not just skate parks, including more and more actual like skate spots, skate plazas, that sort of thing. They're becoming a realm for legitimate architectural design, and there's all sorts of these amazing sculptural, interesting places. I remember, at a certain point, I swore that I was never going to skate a Masonite pyramid again in my life. It's not just that, it seems like there's real opportunities there to invite other people into a space and also make it more interesting. It's better for everyone, I think. So, yeah.
Exactly. I suppose I could build a little bit on that as well from having been a skate park designer. Like when I was designing skate parks, I did it only for a short while, but I only did like what I wanted to do based on skate videos and sort of this culture that's been produced mainly by men. So I reproduced these spots pretty much, and all these sort of rad bowls and, I don't know, ledge spots. And who was I representing then? And there was no one sort of questioning that, really. I think obviously you should have a sort of debate with the users about what they want, but they usually want like, we want a little bit of street, we want a little bit of transition, maybe a bowl, and then you sort of redo this every time into different compositions. There's no talk about like, I think we can do better than that. I think we can be way more progressive because there are no rules. And that's what's beautiful about it.
Yeah. Kristin, could you? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
May I add? I think you're right, and I think the design of whether it's a skate park or another activity surface is extremely important. But even more important, I think, is the actual frontier zone, what's surrounding the actual activity place, because that's what creates the main barrier. Is there a reason for just hanging around and stepwise actually joining an activity and being there without being an expert, being there without being a member of a sport organization or whatever it is? So I think the frontier zone should be much more in focus and has started to gain more and more focus.
Yeah, one of the things that blows us away, Americans, when we come to see European cities, Malmo, London to an extent, and increasingly now I guess Bordeaux, is the fact that we always complain about being fenced in skate parks, but what's interesting about places, and Barcelona is like this too, where skaters are there and then just everyone's there. There's in Barcelona there's like little old ladies having ice cream at midnight, and there's skaters, and there's like part of the immigrant community, and everyone is there. So it's not just that we're getting like fenced in, it's that the broader community is getting fenced out. And that's something that I think we really want to think about. I wanted to actually ask you, Kristin, because I know you've been thinking a lot about these issues, both design and also about how to engage the community and make it a broader community, bring more people in.
Thank you. I definitely feel like we sort of shoot ourselves in the foot when we identify ourselves as skaters and we don't bring in families and other folks that could potentially utilize the space. Where I think there needs to be balance, though, is that I feel like I like the idea of having a space that's like where skateboarding is centered, where skateboarding is like, I think we should be entitled to that to a certain extent. It would be kind of like building a basketball court and like, hey, like once a week there's gonna be like a jazzercise. I don't know if you all know what that is, but it's like mostly older women dancing around doing jumping jacks. So like it'd be like, oh yeah, we're gonna do jazzercise every Tuesday, and we're and then we have to all of a sudden give up part of our space. But where I think there's a lot of power is if other groups have a space as part of our skate park. So going to your point, because it creates buy-in for our community and makes us not have to only defend skate parks as skaters, but our whole community appreciates it and sees it as an asset. So I think about your example of the frustrated folks from the city coming to that table and complaining about skaters. It becomes an us versus them. We could totally shift that and make that not happen in other cities if we create better alliances and better spaces where like more people other than just skaters can participate. They can watch, be inspired. I think about families. They love bringing their little kids to the skate park to watch us, and it's really fun. So from a spectator point of view, but also from like, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday about building places for old folks to play some chess, or people of all ages, I guess, but playing chess next to the skate park. I'm like, that's amazing. So creating other activities around the skate park to create that community buy-in, I think, is powerful.
Right. And I think the notion of multi-use, multi-function, when you want to make scalable space or a scalable object, is extremely important to keep in mind. And a very important thing to do is to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the other like city users. Even if you're a skater and you defend skateboarding, you need to put yourself in the shoes of the politicians, of the city, and of the other city users, of course. And our latest project in Bordeaux that I'm proud of is we built these 6 sculptures, skatable installations that we set on 6 different places in Bordeaux, and they all create a route. They all have the same color code, so people can recognize the sculptures as a wall, But for example, one spot is just like a ledge, like a perfect like mani-pad ledge, wide enough to have 3 chairs on top of the ledge. So and we call this object cohabitation, and that's the purpose of it is to express the fact that we can all share and the same object and live together on the same object, and we can skate on it, people can sit on it also, and it is a way for us to communicate on like positively on skateboarding, especially in a city that come from like a tough like repressive policy towards skateboarding. You know, it's important to like, you know, communicate on this aspect. But I agree with the fact that you always need to think about the multifunction use of an object of a public space, and you need to select the right places. So when we've been working on the master plan for the city of Bordeaux, we've been doing a lot of mapping, you know, because I think each location is very important. What's around is very important. You don't want to disturb anyone when you create a skate spot. You want it to be as inclusive as possible. And doing a lot of mapping, a lot of research on like a territory is very important. Like here, maybe we can add a skate spot, maybe we can make a skate-friendly like area or like plaza. But here, like, oh, there is a retirement home like nearby. Like you don't want to do that, you know, at all. So it's better to like organize like this and still like thinking about everyone, but not just building like areas only for skaters, you know.
It's really interesting there as well. I mean, you've been working very closely with the community as well, and how do you get? I mean, because you've taken on the role of representing the skate community. How do you work with the skaters to make sure that it works? You were saying that there had been skate times, different hours, and how does that happen?
Well, obviously, I'm not doing all that work alone, you know, and I think what works in Bordeaux also is that we're a pretty tight community. So I don't know how it would work in a community where, like, for example, skate shops would be fighting with each other. You know, I don't know how that would work, and that I know in some cities it is the case, you know. But in Bordeaux, everybody is like, skaters are pretty like friends with each other, so it was easier to do that. But then by organizing events, by doing exhibitions where we invite everybody. And also by integrating the different actors of the skate scene into these projects, I think everyone can feel like they're part of this, you know. And I mean, yeah, you need to organize it, and like for example, one friend is a designer and he's gonna help like design the color code and design the sculptures we're building, and the local association they can carry the project in their communication, and they can like send all the kids from the skate school to the sculptures, so they can like actually feel part of this. So you need to like make it as inclusive as possible for all the skate scene, you know.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, y'all can clap. I was just curious if you feel like you have been able to leverage like your talents and abilities on skateboard and the respect that like younger skaters probably have for you locally, and what maybe if you can speak to that experience at all. I don't know. I'm just thinking about like my scene, and I'm like, man, if like the best pro dudes in Seattle were like, all right, y'all, this is what we're gonna do, I feel like everyone would really listen. And I just kind of feel like there's sort of like an ambivalence and almost like a whatever, I'm just a skater, bro. Like, how has that experience been for you to take that leadership? And do you feel like people listen to you more because you're good at skateboarding?
I mean, definitely the fact of being a pro skater helped a lot, you know, in like getting the community to follow. When you ask a community to follow like rules, like skateboarding is supposed to be free and don't have rules. You know, we were used to like skate at night because these plazas were forbidden to skate and we would get ticketed. So we had to completely like switch and change the way the like skaters were actually skating these spots, you know. And I guess by Instagram as being a big help, like social media as like communicating and educating the skaters on the fact that like we are a community, you know, we are all part of this community, and together we can be stronger if we actually like follow this same idea of like sharing the city. And I felt like as at the same time as we were educating the city and the politicians on how beneficial and positive skateboarding also is and important for like our community, we're also educating all the kids on the fact that they're not alone in a city, and they need to share these spaces with other city users and other people. And I mean, to answer your question, I think yes, like you need like figures to be able to carry like a message and like this, you know. But now like I'm stuck to say that we even have like a younger skater in Bordeaux who's a mediator, and he's coming to the plazas at like 8 p.m., the plazas where we have time frames, because we don't have time frames everywhere in the city, just on the plazas that used to be forbidden. He comes at 8 p.m. to ask the skaters to like go to another spot. He's like, oh, you can skate here and there and there. And he talks to the residents, and he's like, oh, you know, like we respect this place, like we are sorry if we, you know, like, so yeah, I think you need like a strong, like a figure to take care of this, but you're definitely not alone, and you need to like take the whole community with you when you're doing something like that, yeah.
But Kristin, you have obviously, oh, sorry. Yeah, no, because I mean, you have a different experience in a way, because you haven't had those people from within the power structure of skateboarding. You've worked to create that kind of space yourself. Could you tell us more about your experience there and with skate parks and skate spots, but also the community, how you've carved a place for yourself?
Totally. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify earlier too. There definitely are a lot of skateboarders in my community that do really care and have worked really hard. I mean, like I mentioned, I was part of a skate park advisory committee, which was comprised of a bunch of very committed folks. They just tended to not be like the best skateboarders. And so I feel like where they really kind of struggled to bridge with the community was that they weren't actually out skating all the time. And I felt like there's potentially like a gap, because I think like we maybe on the last panel or before, someone was mentioning that like the imposter syndrome, right? So all people are welcome to be a part of skateboarding, but I do think unfortunately and fortunately, there is a lot of leverage with people that are really good skaters, and you know, especially being called a pro skater, I think to other younger folks, but also to like city officials maybe even, will respect you in a way that potentially the organizers from my city maybe potentially struggled. They did have other skills. We have an architect and really talented professionals, but yeah, so I guess what I've been trying to do to combat that is to, as someone that skates really regularly, I've tried to really go to all the different parks and be really present, make sure that I know everyone, build and inspire people to step up with me. And that's been somewhat successful, but I do think me being someone that skates and skates regularly and a lot of people know has helped me build that coalition. But I would say it's still building, so yeah. And I wanted to ask you one more question. How do you communicate to your skate community? Do you have meetings with people? Are you just like going to the spots and hanging out? Is it an Instagram post?
I skate all the time, so I see people all the time, and we just like you just see skaters in person and you talk to them, and like when you go to the spot and you see like 30 kids skating, you just stop and you talk with them, and you make them feel good about being part of a community, you know. And then again, like social medias, Instagram, the local association, that's like the skate school, the skate shops, you know, like everybody is involved in this project because they know it's for the better, and they're like, oh wow, like we set up like time frames for like the city hall and this plaza, and now like they completely stopped ticketing us, and now we actually like building skatable sculptures and stuff, so they see that it's positive, so they want to keep on following like this project, you know, and being part of it. And I think the hardest part was, yeah, to make people feel part of this project, but yeah, with social media, exhibition, we even made flyers that we like put around in the skate shops and stuff. I guess you worked like that, yeah.
So do you? Oh, Fredrik, go.
I just have another question. Do you and Arnaud use like co-creation ever with a skate community when you design spots, or is it just you and Arnaud?
No, we work with other skaters from the community for sure. Like it depends on their talents and what they can do. I mean, obviously you can't like bring like thousands of skaters into one project. I mean, you bring thousands of skaters into one project when it's time to skate, but when it's time to design and build and think, but you can bring like we definitely bring other skaters, yeah, other people.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, do you try to bring in like a beginner's perspective, and do you consider other perspectives? Or I mean, I know you're sort of the best skateboarder I've ever met, but do you consider like us average skaters and people who might skate, you know?
Of course.
What, like the ones that you talked about, you know, because that's the ones we want to sort of get in, you know? We can't keep producing spaces that are sort of adapted for the people that are already great at skateboarding, you know. I guess, and if I can build once. Okay, cool.
No, we get the perspective from, definitely the perspective from kids, the perspective from like 40-year-old skaters, and I mean, I'm a pro skater, but I skate small shit, you know.
I know.
So it's pretty easy for me to make a skate spot that's like inclusive for everybody and that I actually enjoy to skate, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I just wanted to bring it up, you know. Because I feel like also like we use these arguments like, skateboarding activates space, so we throw out a 40-centimeter high granite ledge on a plaza, and I mean, who's the skater? Do you know what I mean? Activating that space, you know, I can do like no slides. I skated for 25 years. I mean, it takes a long time to learn how to skate a ledge, so I think we can get more creative with how we activate spaces through skateboarding. Yeah, I just want to put that in there.
I guess another question is also, which is, I mean, ties into your research really, but not just who do we include and who we don't, but who do we push out? I mean, when we make skate spaces available, spaces available for skateboarding, who gets moved away from those spaces? And this is kind of your field. But have you seen in Bordeaux or in Seattle any skate places that have affected other communities detrimentally, or?
One issue that we currently have in Seattle is one of the most commonly used and I would say most diverse skate park in terms of like women, queer folks, POC folks taking up space is on Capitol Hill, which is like a centrally located, like happening area. It's like an old tennis court. I'm not joking. It's like full of like literal garbage that people are skating on. Occasionally there's a rail, but the city will take it and move it, or like fun little wallies that are built out of like trash cans and 2x4s. There's sort of a joke on Instagram right now. It's who can document the worst skatable obstacle, which my current favorite was like a piece of plywood just on the ground. And the caption said, "New Manny." But like I said, it's one of the most popular spots. It's like 3,000 square feet of just flat ground. And that tells you what skaters in Seattle are just craving to skate. Something centrally located, low barrier to entry, and we just want some flat ground. I mean, I know your skate scene is so different because where I live, we have this whole skate park system, but we have these like massive bowls and lots of gnarly transition. It's Grindline's home city. If you know Grindline skate parks in the late great Monk, he built some incredible skatable spaces, but certainly not accessible for everyone. So back to the courts, our most commonly used spot. It is a very tense situation right now with the city. And I know that your work is potentially around more like gentrification or displacement of like homeless folks or folks experiencing homelessness. Our situation deals with the bike polo community because it's their space. That's where they play bike polo. And
you might have to explain bike polo.
Yeah, so bike polo are folks on bicycles with sticks with like a mallet on the end. So it's just like polo, but on bikes. And they're really organized. They're so organized that they got the city to give them the rights to this tennis court space. But like I said, skaters frequent the space, and bike polo is more organized. They go on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7 to 9. You know, they have their times. They're not just always there, just kicking it, you know, like doing their thing. But skaters are there. We're always there taking up space. So right now we have this really contentious issue where skaters and bike polo folks are really having a hard time getting along and sharing that space. And I've seen some violence happen, shouting. I've seen, you know, just this unfortunate conflict. And I'm really inspired by you to figure out how to make it work and get skaters inspired to share.
Can the city step in there? Is that an appropriate place for the city to become involved, or do you think that has to be worked out, among the user groups themselves?
I think that the city will need to get involved at a certain point, but my thought is that I reached out, just because I run Skate Like a Girl, I reached out to a group, WTF, which stands for Women Trans Femme, and they're like a bike polo group. And so my thought is if I align with them as like, women's based, like, alternative sports, like find some common ground there that potentially we could work together to make the space cleaner, maybe get some improvements that would work for skating and for bike polo, and then move on from there. In the times that I've tried to just even permit the space, the city is very anti. I had to get a letter of support from them to even do an event there, and things like that. So it's very hostile. It's actually really hostile with Seattle in general. I just got a bill for like $7,000 for my organization for hosting camps at the skate parks, activating them and all of that. So yeah, it's kind of a tense situation right now. So just, sharing that.
I mean, that's an amazing thing again, I'll just repeat, for Americans coming, to Europe, it is really inspiring what you all have been able to accomplish, and it's kind of a role model. So, we need to invite some of you to North America to help us. I did want to, I think we got to move to Q&A in just a second. I did want to ask one other question, kind of following on that, and this is for everyone. And you kind of alluded to it. I've done work on skate parks in the U.S. where I'm looking really at parks management literature and landscape architect literature. So basically a technocratic viewpoint. What do they think about skate parks? Why do they want them? And they're very frank, if you read this literature, that they like the idea of the phrase that they use is highest best use. What is the highest best use of this land? And that always means property values. And it's hard to get too angry at them because in the US, you don't have much funding for cities. All of their funding, if you want services, it has to come through property taxes. So they are kind of laser incentivized on always doing things that are going to improve property values. And planners have kind of realized that skate parks can be a tool in their quiver to try to clear out, in a lot of cases, specifically like homeless encampments, and that's one of the reasons that they're often sited under bridges. The idea is you can move this population out, and then, skaters. It's not super high value, but you get a cool little coffee shop, cool little art gallery, maybe a cool little bar, and then some young professionals start, and then the condos will come eventually, right? So, the way that I've expressed it before, I know a lot of you have heard me say this before, but skateboarders are swept out of some spaces and they're used as a broom in others. So skateboarding really has been instrumentalized in a lot of ways. And, I really appreciated what people were saying in a number of panels. Are we a counterculture or a subculture, or are we just culture? If we're a culture and we're integrated and people on all sides are making good faith efforts, the skaters and the cities, then I think we have to kind of grow up a little bit and accept that we have some responsibilities too. And I'm really concerned about the possibility of skateboarding being instrumentalized as a way to kind of clear out people who are on a lower rung of the socioeconomic ladder than we are. And so I was wondering if you guys have encountered that or thought about that. Yeah.
I can build a little bit on that, coming from a completely different context, obviously. I think skateboarders are also, as you might have experienced, we hang out a lot in the streets, many of us, so sometimes we sort of almost form relationships with homeless people. We know what their names, so we kind of validate them and sort of confirm them as like decent citizens somehow. We might be sometimes the only people that do that. So for instance, in Stockholm, we have this mirror dam that I was telling you about before, called Observatorielunden, that our skateboard organization actually formed around Stockholm Skateboard Collective. And Niklas Boström, right there, he's been working for years trying to convince the city to remove the skate stoppers that they put up because it was, I don't know, for some reason they thought skateboarders were damaging the dam. And what happened was that, people complained, and actually the skateboarders, when they were there, they kind of made this place safer, and also they knew the homeless people and can kind of like, see when they're going off and go talk to them or, stuff like that. So it's a different context. So I think now that we've got all those edges skate adapted with 270 meters of granite and skated, it's a skateboarding paradise. We kind of, it's somehow created this harmony between homeless people and skaters, and I think it's like, and sort of the opposite of what you're saying, you know. So you can actually use it as a tool to, I don't know, validate homeless people, I guess. I don't know.
I kind of had the same experience in Bordeaux, yeah.
Yeah, that's a street spot I want to build. It's not a skate park, so maybe that's part of the difference. Yeah.
Karin, you were.
Yes. Well, I think if you look at urban planners, but also property developers of different kinds, I think there is a ambivalence that, on the one hand, skateboarding and skate parks and skate culture as well is used for city marketing. It's a way of showing this is a cool place or cool city or cool neighborhood, etc. And on the other hand, it's considered to be a bit of a problem because it could look a bit rough and could be considered to be a bit of a rough culture. So there is a ambivalence. But I think one issue that actually makes it a popular solution in when you want to add some value into a neighborhood is that it's scalable. We talked earlier about is someone pushed out, and we need to find new mixed uses and shared spaces. And and most cities today are going through densification processes. You need to, use space in a more efficient way. And skateboarding has the advantage of being, scalable. You could make a very, very small area into a skate spot or skate park, or you can have, a large industrial site being converted into a skate park. And I think that's what also makes it suitable for fitting into different neighborhoods to raise the property value.
Interesting. I mean, we did hear earlier that skateboarding hasn't been cool since Eastern Exposure 3, right? But it is just a in joke from one of the other panels. But sorry. But it's very true. It is perceived that way, and so to me, I mean, the question is like, when we succeed in getting skateboarding planned, what weights, what do we deliver, you know? And so the challenge to me is, what are we actually delivering? And we try, obviously, like I'd like to like. People say this, like someone else said before. If money invested in skateboarding and is money invested in boys that take over space, and that is true to a degree, but it also has the potential of not being true. If you look at statistics today of how many women take part in skateboarding, it's small. But it's 10 times more than it was 5 years ago, or, you know. So a statistic today doesn't necessarily correspond to the future. And I think, I mean, in Malmö, we work with, like, every event we do, we make sure that we always have, like, if you can see it, it's real. So we invest the same money in female skateboarders coming to the events. We always have male, female speaker. We always have, we try to make the events accessible. We've actually been a little bit bad this year with tricks for cash and stuff. It's a bit, but we always make sure that if we do something with skateboarding, men and women and as many parts of the community as possible are represented. And the idea would be that in the future, that those statistics won't be true. Like if you look at the trajectory, we're going towards the 50-50 balance. And so that I would like to see, and I guess this is part of why I really wanted you to come as well, is that we as a skateboard community, if we are going to deserve any of these investments, we need to work with making skateboarding accessible in public spaces. I mean, it's fun. Skateboarders make their own choices, and you can hang out in your own crews, and you don't have to be friends with everybody. But if we step into the public realm, where everyone owns the space, where we share it with other citizens, then we need to deliver on these things. We need to make skateboarding accessible to other people, and we need to promote, in particular, women and other user groups. And yeah, that's the point. Fanfare. Go on, Kristin.
I just wanted to build on that quickly. I promise I'll keep it short. I just wanted to highlight that again and just say that the future of skateboarding depends on that. If we continue to have a homogenous culture that recreates the same shit over and over again, we will die.
And then we're also part of the problem.
Yes.
We are not a solution. We are
Yeah.
part of the problem. And who would you rather be?
Yeah, I just want our culture to continue to thrive, and I just think that happens when we confront issues of equity, and I think we're all doing that this weekend. So I'm really excited about that. I had another thought, but it escaped me, so we'll move on.
I think we're definitely time to move to Q&A, right? Yeah.
Then I have to leave. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Karin. Thank you so much.
Ready, call them out. Questions?
I can't see. David, mid-row. Right to left.
Thank you everyone for a fantastic discussion and debate. I was kind of hoping to ask this question to Gustav and Karin, but I'll direct it a little bit more to Gustav. Sorry, Gustav. No. You obviously represent one department here in Malmö from the commune, the municipality. How are the other departments engaging in skateboarding in the city? And more importantly, helping you answer the diversity question or reducing the male dominance?
Good question. I think actually a way to answer that is more from the Bryggeriets perspective, because they are the skate organization, and I use the analogy of an octopus. One of the strengths of the Malmö skate scene is that Bryggeriet, the skate organization, has learned to work with different departments and form different partnerships for different things. So they work with the sports and rec department to hold skate classes at the skate parks, but they also work with me and the streets and parks department to hold events in public spaces. Not so much collaboration with the culture department yet, but in the kind of the sustenance department for management of the skate parks. And all these different partnerships create a cash flow and support for the skate organization. It makes them more sustainable. And when I think when it comes to working with a male dominance, it's also promoting within their organization Tösabilarna and working with the females and LGBTQI plus, etc. Community to make sure that there's a platform within the organization for that, and then that allows me, from a city perspective, to work with that part of the organization and ask for their guidance in terms of our programming and so on. So I think it's as much on the skate side as it is for our side. And then internally, it's a real shame because today, the event we were going to do after this, which the weather is now looking, that we have cancelled because of the weather, was in a schoolyard in Rosengård. Just a schoolyard in an area where there hasn't previously been anything to skate. And it's a school that also has an evening program, so that there are people from the culture department take over when school finishes, and they do outreach programs like, if you want to try cooking, you can use the school kitchens, or if you want to try martial arts or dance or something, we'll get an instructor in, and people can they have this wonderful community building work that they do. And from us, from a skateboarding perspective, that means that they have the ability to do things that I don't. So me working, that means if I can partner with them, we can promote skateboarding and host events, but then that can live on through their, if we leave boards, they can continue to activate. So for me, I try to form partnerships with other departments that have the ability to pick up where I leave off. So we managed through this collaboration to build, to change the surface in a kind of existing dugout to be this new kind of tennis court or bowl court / skate park that we were going to open and have a big block party for today, but unfortunately it's rained out, but I hope you get to see it anyways. But yeah, so sum up, the skate organization does a lot of that by being an octopus and forming partnerships, and I try to form partnerships where my role is limited. In all of that work, we always try to predate every initiative we do with an equality analysis. Same as we do a security plan, we always have an equality plan ahead. So.
Sure. No, it's something that we touched on in the Spaces workshop earlier in the week, how those synergies create the best of the municipalities that are delivering these parks, spaces, whatever. Yeah.
And it's always the biggest challenge.
Yeah,
so if the hardest thing for departments to do is to collaborate, because everyone, in a politically governed organization, you have politicians deciding, and then it filters down, and you develop each department with their responsibility, and everyone is busy. And everyone is looking at their activity, and it's very hard for people to look up and form a partnership. It involves risk. Becomes unclear whose jurisdiction you're in, and so on. Yeah. But I think that's something that municipal workers really should try and take pride in, or to try and remind themselves to look cross-departmental in their kind of drives and ideas and so on.
Yeah, thanks. Brilliant.
To your right now, Phil.
Oh, hello. Hi. I guess my question is about spaces that already exist, like basically skate parks, and how we as skaters can accept and celebrate the use of that skate park with everyone else. So in my local skate park in Norwich in the UK, you have lots of young children with scooters, like 11 or 12, but then you get tiny, tiny children whose parents just kind of sit by the sidelines watching. It's a bit dangerous, but then you also get loads of teenage kids just hanging out, just kind of loads of teenage girls just giggling and being random or whatever, but also other young people who are maybe taking drugs and drinking alcohol. There was there was someone who was not much older than 12 just sitting there drinking vodka. And how do we kind of invite everybody in and not just get annoyed by them? Because I know that there's a lot of people in skateboarding who just kind of be like, oh, scooters, ugh. But actually most of those skate park users are children, and they haven't got any role models or anything like that. So how can we kind of celebrate the spaces that we have and include all of those people within our culture, if that makes sense? Thank you.
Wow. I don't really know how to respond to that, but it's something that I've thought about a lot, is that we tend to talk a lot about defensive design and how we're getting shut out of the public spaces, and everyone's so aggressive towards us. But if someone reinterprets our spaces, the skate parks, say a scooter kid uses a transition to do a tail whip, God forbid, so I'm just wanna bring that in here, they're often public spaces. I mean, rad dudes build bowls for scooter kids. We don't have to see it as just places for skateboarding. I mean, it's just a mentality, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, because the scooter kids get so much joy out of skating around and down the ramps and everything, just like we do.
Yeah, that's sick, I think.
Controversial.
Sorry.
I think, no, it's fine. I think this scooter conversation is worth having, but it's perhaps not a full panel at this conference. But it's, you never know. The scooter panel. Where's the scooter panel? Where's the Olympics panel? God damn it! I think with the users, like we've been talking about how skateboarding transgresses categories, it also transgresses demographies and age groups. So we don't have teams in a certain age group that we can treat in a certain way. You can't say, oh, you're in the 12th grade team, so you don't get to drink, but when you're in high school, you may be allowed to be out till 11 on the team trip to the next competition or whatever. We share space. And we also have a culture that has been susceptible to the traditional marketing pressures of the stereotypical youth culture. So we do have, drugs and gender stereotypes and alcohol being romanticized, and skateboarding is perceived as a haven for those things, and people subscribe to that because they're teenagers and they still, every generation thinks that's cool. It's like, you suckers. I mean, fucking hell. All right. But anyways, so we have that, and these people are supposed to share a space, and there's no one, because they're spontaneous and fantastic, there's no one monitoring those spaces. And this is a real question of adults in that place and solidarity, I think. And I fail here sometimes as well, you don't want to interfere and But if there's an adult present and someone does something stupid and nothing happens, you're signing away that as okay. And for young people, every adult has an automatic authority, right? So you can't not be responsible as an adult in a way. So if people are smoking and there's adults there and no one does anything, I mean, smoke, or behaving in a disrespectful way or whatever. If no one does anything, that's going to continue, and that's going to become a norm, and we're going to have those kind of places, I think. But if you like Brian was saying before about Love Park, or what you're doing in Bordeaux, like having that, like, okay, we're part of this, we're part of having this responsibility and to care for this space, and you're part of this community. You're not alienated, having to prove something by boozing. You can be responsible for this space together with us, and hey, there's kids watching, etc. If we have that kind of behavior, I think that's a good strategy for handling those kinds of... but I mean, it's like skaters, young kids, it's like you have your focus here, and sometimes you need to tap on the shoulder, and by someone you respect, preferably, who can sort of point you in the right direction.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Nice one. Sorry, quick housekeeping. Balin is waiting outside if Balin's parents are here. Balin's outside. Okay, next question.
Kristin, jump in.
Hey.
I just wanted to say one thing. Is that skate park, is that isolated? Is it like the skate park that you just described with, like...
Well, no, there's other skate parks in the UK that have very similar situations. But obviously that's...
Oh, I just meant, like, is it isolated from, like, lighting or, like,
no,
another park? Or are there people around,
No,
like, other than skaters? Or is the skate park kind of tucked in the back corner?
It's tucked in the back corner of a big public park, but it does have lighting up until 11 p.m. But after that, everyone kind of disappears. Well, yeah. I disappear anyway.
Totally. I just mentioned that because I actually have a really similar skate park in my community, and it's from the pressures of the community that didn't skateboard. When this was one of the first public skate parks that got built in Seattle, on the north end of the city, there was a lot of pressure from the community to not build it close to housing, to put it back in the corner. And what's sort of the result of that, us as skaters being okay with that and the city being okay with that, is that it becomes a haven for people to do sketchy things. And the intended use was for it to be activated by skaters or people on wheels, whatever. It becomes a place for people to do drugs or do other things that are not as positive. And so I just wanted to throw that out there as something that we could maybe put on our docket of things to advocate for, is to put skate spaces in centrally located areas where there's a bathroom and there's a water fountain and there's access to getting on a phone if there's an emergency. I think so often they put skate parks in like the worst possible places, under a bridge or whatever. And yeah, we need to ask for more. We need more.
Thank you.
But then we also need to deliver more responsibility if we're asking for that space.
Where do I go? I'm waiting. One
somewhere
from the back, maybe?
Somewhere in the back, like in a corner, somewhere out there. Behind,
Should we have like somebody who's not been on a panel as well? Should we just one of the attendees? Yeah. Cool.
So, hey, so this might be a slightly more North American attitude that's influenced here, but because of what we talked about with the fence, or what Ocean mentioned with the fenced-in/fenced out culture of skate parks, and maybe North Americans not respecting that or appreciating that, and they want their own respect. There's a huge DIY culture that's more of ask for forgiveness and not permission, not working with cities, and there's pride associated with that. Do you think, has anyone on this panel basically captured the energy of those people and those groups to start working then with cities and with establishments to build more skatable spaces legally? And if so, you know, how?
Well, we spent 3 years trying to find a shape of a contract so that Bryggeriet could take over land for DIY projects. Because from the city perspective, a big part of what makes Malmö what it is not the efforts between the city and the skaters, but the DIY projects that Pontus and that whole crew have communicated through those videos and through the DIY spots and so on. That's a massive part of what Malmö is and our identity. You know, it's half or more. And so essentially that's young people spending their own time and energy and money making free skate parks for the city in spaces that aren't being used. Oh, tragedy, you know. So that's an amazing asset for Malmö. It's also, okay, how about they make some you know, world-class skate videos that get seen all around the world and some like creates an identity for Malmö as a skate mecca. Oh, that's all right too. How about they, you know, do that for 10 years running? Yeah, that's okay for this from a city perspective. That's amazing. So, but you know, we have a lot of, you know, we need to safeguard. The municipality's role is to safeguard a lot of interests of cities and legal frameworks and so on. So, finding the right structure for a contract for land, where you can subsidize land for building something that does not have a building permit, but that needs to grow organically, was quite a challenge. But we worked on and off for about 3 years, and then we arrived at a contract that stipulates that, okay, you can take over this land for a certain period of time at a subsidized rent, and you can do DIY projects here, you can build, but you can't be higher than this, you know. Pedestrians need to be able to come by, it can't be unsafe, you need to look after the trash and so on. So that's kind of the perimeters that we needed to construct. And Bryggeriet, because they're such a strong organization, they can take that risk on. Like a weak skate organization couldn't take the risk on of, you know, having damage being caused or that kind of thing. But Bryggeriet, as a partner to the city, have the ability to do that. And I think a lot of the original DIY guys, all respect to them. They're like, well, this goes against our ethos, you know, like we find places, we make decisions, this is like self-determination. But there's other people in the DIY crew who are like, well, we don't mind this responsibility, and we want to have a place to build. We want to have a place to build community, and they have started the DIY crew, which has been the Pigberry, the other event we cancelled. And so that's the Pig Barrier, and so they have started building there, and that has shaped that community, and it's been an amazing asset to the organization overall. And now through this conference, we were able to invite people from all over the world to come there and bond and form the relationships that is really at the heart of all this. So yeah, we have been able to capitalize. We've been able to form an official structure to enable DIY projects, but in doing so, we understand that we're also asking the DIY community to give up part of their self-determination in a way, and if people want to do that or not, that's all up to them, and all respect to the people and their passion, you know.
Sure, thanks.
Can I just say something on the topic of DIY? I met Eve and Lev yesterday from De Niro DIY, which is, I think they're over there. Mother and daughter building a DIY in Malaga. It's sick. On the someone need to do a story about them because it's sick. Like, they sort of we kind of met each other because I'm doing this report and they're doing it like for real. So I'm down for a collaboration with you guys and sort of showcase another type of DIY also that's, you know, maybe not sort of the Panas TBS aesthetics, but something new and kind of progressive, I think, and that kind of shows something else. I just wanted to put that in there.
Josh, or is it? Yeah, go on.
Thank you. Really appreciate all the insights from you guys on ways to move these things through the public process, because I know it's very complicated. But as we're talking about inclusion, one thing that I didn't hear anything about today was universal design in terms of allowing adaptive skateboarders access to skate spots and skate parks and future integration, because one of the things that we're working on from the USA skateboarding side of things is to get adaptive skateboarding in the Paralympics. And that only starts when you have adaptive skateboarders having access to facilities. So one, just curious if you've thought about it. Two, want to make sure the people in the room that are making decisions on these type of things are considering universal design for adaptive access to skate spaces.
Yeah. I'll just build a little bit on this. And I mean, we named our project so creatively Inclusive Skate Parks, but inclusion is a very wide term. And I mean, we scratched the surface a little bit, I think, and just, I guess, started looking at, you know, girls and women and, you know, people that don't identify as male. But there are so many other sort of underrepresented groups, such as, people with, what do you call it? Disabilities, and they absolutely, like, we have to look into that too and lift those questions. And I think we want to continue doing our workshops with those groups as well. We just started sort of in the most obvious place, I guess.
I totally understand. We did an adaptive panel at Skate in London, and it was really exciting, but it also brought to the surface, you know, we're there, we have wheelchair MX riders, we had adaptive skaters, we had Dan Mancino was there skating, Oscar Loretto, a few other people. But then someone came up to me and very seriously said, what about, you know, people with mental disabilities? Like, where are they? They're not included here. I understand it all starts somewhere. I just wanted to bring it to light in this forum so that people can start thinking about it, because this is where those things grow from. So that was the reason for the question. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act kind of thing. In the U.S., there's a set of laws that dictate access to places, and I guess they don't think about them in skate parks at all. But it seems like it should be pretty natural, right? You know, just you know, ramps. You know, just a way for people to get in. It seems like that's one of those things that you wouldn't have to think of necessarily as a limitation, but also as an opportunity. To the mental health thing, I don't know. I mean, that's a very difficult question, but I don't know. Maybe you all have thoughts about any of that.
That discussion about mental health and disabilities and so on was part of our dialogue with Pushing Borders ahead of this, and I think it's a real panel to have for future years, to talk about those experiences and share those experiences so that we can generate a better understanding. We also, I mean, in Sweden, our spaces are dictated by, they need to be accessible, but I don't think that has necessarily applied to all parts of all skate parks, and I think we can certainly learn from that here too. I just had a meeting last week with about wheelchair access at Stapelbäddsparken. I mean, you can get into the to the street area and the main bowl, but the bigger street sections you can't. It's too hard. And so they were asking me, are these stairs or are they skate objects? So, and they are skate objects because they're designed to be skated. So. But otherwise, we would be legally required to build a wheelchair ramp up them that can't be higher than 1 meter elevation for 6 or 12 meters distance and so on, which would have completely changed the face of the skate park. But so in the design process, then you should have designed that in the first place. And that's what we need to learn.
Okay, we've got time for 2 more questions. I'm over this side of the room.
This is mostly for Ocean, but I think maybe other people can address this too. And it's on the subject of mixed-use skate spaces. And I think we have a lot of great examples in this region of that happening now. And in the US, it's such a different, more skate-hostile environment. What do you see as the main roadblocks to that? Because you'd think that from a highest and best use perspective, if we can integrate more types of users into skate spaces, there's a better case for them for the city. But what do you see as the roadblocks to this?
I mean, I think American municipalities have yet to be convinced of the value of it. I mean, the broadest answer is that it's much more conservative, at least with respect to ideas about property. You know, I think there's a long-standing European tradition of, in Western European countries anyway, of you know, having you know, just socialized medicine, you know, a different set of property relations. You know, there's much more investment in public housing. So I think all of that really just kind of feeds into. I'm going to make a zeitgeisty kind of hand-wavy argument here, but you'd need to do real research to see whether or not this is right. But my sense is that it's just there is more kind of public spiritedness in Western European countries, and especially in Western European cities. Yeah, we are, you know, the American dream is to own property, right? And so people, therefore, even when they're in public space, I think they have a more kind of privatized mindset about public space. Well, who does this belong to? You know, whereas in a lot of European cities, the skate-friendly ones, that isn't, you know, so much at the front of everyone's mind. It's much simpler for people to just understand that it's for everyone. So I think that's what. So I mean, the way to change it is to slowly, like, point to European cities, point to this place, point to Bordeaux. I guess Ariel in Toronto is making a little bit of headway. It sounds like trying to get them to think about this kind of stuff a little bit, integrate more kind of mixed-use spaces, not just have it parks fenced off, you know. But I mean, I think it's going to be a long process of changing people's minds. And, you know, I think Europe is leading the way right now. Good on you guys. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was just going to mention in my experience going street skating in North American cities, I hear constantly, oh, well, if you fall, you'd sue us, and so we just got to kick you out. And that's the nice security guard speech, always. So I think the property piece is really huge. And when we're skating, we're like, transcending from public space to private spaces, like, you know, and yeah, I just think the liability issue is another piece too. In North America, we're just obsessed with suing each other.
I know that was an amazing thing when skaters. One of the reasons they were able to start building skate parks was because of the oh god, what was the name of the law? Yeah. Well, in California, this is the case I know best. There's basically a law that says if you hurt yourself on a skateboard, you can't sue, and that's how we got skate parks at all. So, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, a lot of people in the skate community were really happy to have it because that was the only way we were ever going to get any kind of accommodations at all. Because as you were saying, you know, just litigation happy there. So,
Peter Whitley, everybody.
The recreational statute. That's right, hazardous recreational statute. Thank you. Couldn't remember it. Thanks.
I'll run over the other side of the room for the last question. Sorry. Is anybody? There's one.
In the back there.
One right at the back.
Thanks, Phil. Another question came out of the Spaces workshop yesterday, which was super rad. 35 people all over the world, all sorts of amazing practice, including Michael, who asked that great question a moment ago, Ariel, and loads of others. But after we had the workshop around space, around urbanism, around a better word for master planning, Indigo rightly called us out that we had 35 plus people talking about architecture, urban planning, etc., and only 6 participants were female. And obviously this is an outcome, or as a self-selecting workshop, that a lot of the professions that skaters are attracted into, be that architecture and urban planning, etc., are super duty professions. Like I've got colleagues at my university who work in construction and a built environment, and they're working super hard to try and make these professions more inclusive. But there's a potential with skaters skewing male that we're making some of these professions even dudier by the fact that mainly guys are being attracted to them. We've seen a little bit in the academic forum that some female academics are seemingly more likely to be researching in some of the disciplines that are more associated with are more highly gendered towards female participation. So, sociology, the sort of the study of feelings and the body, etc. So my question is, can we, through some of the discussions that we're having and some of the practice that we're interested in, help make some of the professions that skateboarding is having an increasing relationship with, can we make these professions more inclusive? Can we influence more women and girls going into architecture, going into urban planning, going into those sort of things, so we have a knock-on effect to make the stuff that we're trying to influence more inclusive as well?
Good. How many people in here have some kind of a professional connection to architecture? How many got into it through skateboarding? Okay, that's most of you anyways. So if we have more women in skateboarding, most likely, you'll have the same conditions to find architecture through skateboarding as any males do, but it's mainly guys so far, right? So, I don't know, that would seem to be the simple answer, right?
Yeah, and I think also, maybe the sort of desire to design skate parks, I don't know why, but to me it seems like that's an extremely duty architectural profession. But I think, for instance, in Sweden, I think it's like 50-50. I'm not sure, male, female, like in architecture, I think.
Are we going to get into the discussion of what's a duty profession?
No. But
really?
I mean, it's just like something that I think
women,
it's been sort of.
They can't really.
No,
they don't like. They just like these things.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Maybe I came up wrong, but I'm just saying that I think we need to sort of think of who's a legitimized skate park designer. I don't know, and skate park builder, because I think, in my experience, all skate park builders I think I've ever met have been guys. I've met a few skate park designers that have been girls, though. Sandra, for instance. Yeah. So I don't know.
But
anyone want to build on that?
You can't. I just have to object to the premise that the choice of the choice of profession is dictated by a gender, a simplified gender analysis. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why, options, histories, and we're also talking from the point of that the fact that skateboarding has been male dominated. So it's a completely useless discussion to have, because we don't have any. We don't have any kind of evidence to, we're subject to our own condition right now. But to me, it seems very intuitive that if there are more women in skateboarding, that could get in, that would trigger the same kind of interest for architecture as it has for many male skaters.
I completely agree with you. And I didn't mean to step on any toes. I mean, do you know what I mean? I think we're coming from the same place. I think I maybe express myself a little bit.
It may be a time factor. It may be that the explosion we've seen in female skating, it may, in time, we get much more female professionals coming in and therefore being represented in these sort of. It may have been a strategic misstep on behalf of us in not perhaps more purposively reaching out to female professionals that we knew about, perhaps. But I mean, I wonder whether time is one of the factors that is influencing this distribution or not. I am sorry that we yeah. Yo, do you want?
All right, give him the mic, please. Pass the mic. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Talking about inclusivity, I was one of the only females in that workshop yesterday, but also I'm not a skateboarder, and I spent all weekend defending that. So, you know, there's other people outside of skateboarding that is really interested in you guys and that wants to really study you, and it's sometimes very difficult, is all I wanted to say.
I have been skating for 20 years. I have an undergrad in urban studies, master's in urban development planning, and have worked on various skate park projects around the world. So we are here, and we're very active. And we're female.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of women who can probably say that, who are architects and who have done that. So, yeah. And I wasn't in that workshop yesterday because I was in the other workshop with women.
But
So,
also, lots of female builders, lots of female everything. And also, if you look at skateboarding statistically in general, it's almost 90% guys, right? So if it was 30 people and 4 women.
Yeah. So I'm the one that Chris
Exactly.
was brought up that sort of question for. So my name's Indigo because we haven't really met some of you. But I guess what I wasn't trying to call out. I was trying to call in a way that's saying, if you are in urban planning, if you're in construction, if you are doing urban planning of any kind, maybe the types of conversations you have with skateboarders, we're all skaters here, is that, you know, saying to people, have you thought about, you know, moving into architecture? Have you thought about building? Have you thought about this career? This is one of the careers that you can have. My panel here was about academia, and I was saying to people, you've all got stories. If you want to think about academia, do that so we can affect policy. So mainly in your positions, I think you could encourage fellowships, you could encourage internships, you could just encourage people into that profession the way that they are with women in STEM. And of course, we can also do it ourselves. But I'm just sort of saying in your roles, if you are not a female or you're not non-binary or not genderqueer, these are the types of conversations that really improve the space. That's all from me.
All right, cool. In that case, I'm going to run up on the stage. Hi. In that case, we'll bring today's talks to a close. Please join me and thank you so much to the panel.